Gilmore. Deputy Gilmore, without interruption, please.
Cancor, as I understand it, what the government has concluded is that legislation is required to allow for the files that the HSE have on the cases of people who have children who have died in care to be handed over to the Nora Gibbons, Jeffrey Shannon investigation. Now, what I don't understand is why the government is still not in a position to say how many children died in the care of the state over the last 10 years. So I want to try and get some clarity on this, Taoiseach. First of all, can you tell us when did the state ask the HSE, when did the department ask the HSE to hand over the files to the two investigators? You say that the HSE on Monday last raised this legal difficulty that the government then considered. Was that the first response that the HSE gave to the request that the files be handed over? Or what, if any, response was the HSE giving in the period between the time they were first asked for the files and last Monday morning? Have the HSE told you, or told the Minister for Children, how many files are involved? It's one thing to say that the files can't be handed over for legal reasons, but it is quite a different thing to be in a position that we still don't know how many are involved. Now, I expressed some surprise here yesterday, Taoiseach, that there were as many, or that there was a Sunday newspaper report that said that there could be 200. And I pointed out that if it's as high as 200, then that is a level of mortality among children in care which is about 10 to 12 times the level of mortality among children in the wider population, which would be quite an extraordinary state of affairs. And what also surprises me is that since last Sunday, since that story was published, I haven't heard anybody in the HSE or in government challenging that figure of 200. So can you tell us the answers to the questions I'm asking? When did the department look for the files? How many of them are there? And what has the HSE been saying up to last Monday? What response were they giving up to last Monday about the numbers involved? Well, Cancor, I still don't understand why the issue about the transfer of the files and the legal objection that is about legal difficulty that has arisen about that is still causing difficulty in identifying how many are involved. I know the Taoiseach has said that the HSE says it's 23. I think at present is the phrase that you've used. But I would have thought that. I would have thought that the actual fact of the number of deaths that have occurred is something that would have been easy enough to establish, and in any event is something that should be known to the HSE already without this process of validating whatever that means. And I don't know what that means, Taoiseach, being undertaken. With regard to the legal option that the government has taken to introduce legislation, why is that necessary, Taoiseach? Firstly, under the Commission of Investigation Act 2005, if Nora Gibbons and Jeffrey Shannon were to be appointed to investigate under that Commission of Investigation Act, there wouldn't be a necessity for new legislation. That act would give investigators the power to overcome any legal difficulties, like the legal difficulties that you have cited. So why wasn't that route taken rather than the introduction of new legislation? Secondly, can I ask you about the Coroner's Bill 2007? Government introduced that bill in April of 2007, and it got as far as the second stage in the Seanad, and it hasn't been heard of since. That bill would require the reporting to the coroner of any death of a child in care. Now, at least that would have dealt with the situation from 2007. Why has that bill not been not been progressed. I mean, it seems to me there are two legislative routes that are open to you, rather than having to introduce completely new legislation to deal with this. One was to deal with it under the Commission of Investigation Act, which is already the law of the land, and if Ms Gibbons and Mr Shannon were appointed under that act, they could simply go ahead and overwrite whatever legal difficulties there are. Or secondly, if you progressed the coroner's bill that has been lying in the Seanad for the last 3 years unattended to, there wouldn't be a necessity to have new legislation.